Chris Doumitt wasn't supposed to be back. He had retired, stepped away from the grind, and closed the chapter on a legendary run. But when Parker Schnabel found himself on the edge, machines failing, gold output crashing, and pressure building, there was only one man who could turn things around. Chris answered the call. Not as a miner, but as the man who once built the heart of Parker's operation with nothing but grit and bare hands. In just 2 days, he pulled off a miracle, delivering nearly 100 ounces and saving Parker from $1 million disaster. The reward? A jaw-dropping $200,000 move. But what really shocked everyone, was how close Parker had come to destroying the very machine, and the man, who made his empire possible. The wash plant was on the verge of collapse, chaos, breakdowns, and frustration everywhere. But Chris Doumitt didn't just fix a machine, he saved an entire operation. Because in gold mining, it's never as simple as flipping a switch. You've got to know the machine, feel it, tune it. And Chris? He knew it better than anyone. But what came next nearly shattered his partnership with Parker Schnabel forever, all starting from one desperate phone call. Chris Doumitt's story is one of the most unexpected in gold rush history. He wasn't born into mining. He didn't chase gold. He was a carpenter, a man with calloused hands and a builder's eye, not a miner's hunger. In Season 1, his only job was to build a cabin for Todd Hoffman's crew. But when someone didn't show up for work, Chris didn't wait for instructions. He picked up a shovel, and changed his life forever. Mitch. I think we shut that plant down and see where this gold is going. That moment, quiet, uncertain, marked the beginning of Chris Doumitt's transformation from carpenter, to full-fledged gold miner. But Chris had no idea that this single decision would lead him straight into a crossroads that would define not only his career, but his loyalty. Things were heating up with the Hoffman crew. Tensions rose. 2 sites. 2 leaders. Todd Hoffman and Dave Turin. And only one choice. The crew had to pick a side. For Chris, the choice wasn't hard. He respected Dave Turin, his grit, his focus, his no-nonsense attitude. Chris didn't just follow a boss, he followed a work ethic. So, he stepped up, drew the line, and joined Dave's team at Indian River. And that's where everything changed. Because it was there, on that cold stretch of ground, that Chris first laid eyes on the machine that would shape his future. Big Red. A towering, thundering beast of a wash plant worth $250,000. More than just metal and bolts, it would become the center of Chris's rise, fall, and legendary return. That thing was meant to help people find a lot of gold, but it came in pieces, and no one knew how to put them together or make them work right. Chris said he had no idea what it was supposed to look like or how it worked, so he and Dave got to work. Since they didn't have a crane, they had to use an excavator to move the huge screen deck into place. They figured out where all the bolts and springs went. It was like putting together a huge, hard puzzle out of steel. But Chris did more than just help build it, he learned how it worked as well. He knew Big Red inside and out, all of its quirks and problems. When it got stuck, he learned what to do. How to make it right. He figured out how to feed the dirt in at just the right speed to get the most gold. He basically tamed the Big Red beast, and it worked. The crew had a great season, finding a total of 83 ounces of gold worth over $1.2 million. As they celebrated around a campfire at the end of the season, Chris felt like he had finally done it. Oh yeah, we've got a grand total of 83 right now, yes 803 dang that's man good job guys, he said to himself. It's time to go home and go fishing again. He was at the top of his game and ready to retire. Chris was serious about retiring. At a special live Gold Rush TV show called The Dirt, he told everyone about his plans. He said that he had helped his crew become successful and that now it was time for him to step aside and give someone younger a chance. Many people thanked him for everything he had done and were sad to see him go. It felt like the end of an era as the quiet, faithful veteran finally put away his boots for good. In the middle of this emotional live TV moment, a new person walked on stage, a young, confident boy named Parker Schnabel. He was only 17 years old at the time, but he walked right up to the Hoffman crew and said he was looking for experienced miners to join his own crew in the Yukon. It was a brave move from such a young boy, and Chris thought it was funny that he called Parker a cocky but cool character. Chris had met Parker before, when he was even younger. What's really going on behind the scenes is that Parker grew up right next to Hoffman's first mine site. Chris remembered him as a cocky, smug little kid who would ride up to their camp on a tiny motorcycle. Parker was already a smart businessman. He would sell firewood to the Hoffman crew because they didn't have a generator for power, and he wasn't afraid to make a profit. He famously said he charged them twice as much as he usually did, and he definitely left. In mind after his first exit, Chris eventually joined Parker's crew for a few seasons, but he still wanted to take it easy and enjoy life, so after 3 more years of hard work, he decided to retire again. This time, he was done. He went home and traded in his shovel for a set of golf clubs, but the quiet life wasn't what he thought it would be. He told his wife that he missed the action, the challenge, and the North. The $200,000 deal could have ended there, and Chris could have had a quiet life at home. But one day the phone rang, and it was Parker Schnabel. This call would change everything. Parker was now a young mine boss and in a lot of trouble. He had made a deal to buy the old wash plant Big Red from the Hoffman crew, but he didn't know how to run it right, and his crew was having a hard time because they were putting dirt in too quickly. The machine kept getting stuck, and they were losing gold. Parker was getting desperate. He knew that Chris Doumitt was the only real expert on Big Red, so he called Chris and begged him to come up to the mine. Parker told Chris that Chris would really save his operation. Christopher remembered how close he was to the machine. He had spent a lot of time with Big Red and knew it well at home. Christopher told his wife about the call he got. Was still thinking about it when she came back a few minutes later with his bags already packed. She knew he was ready to leave. Chris knew he didn't want to say it out loud, but he wanted to go back to the Klondike. When Chris got to Parker's mine at Scribner Creek, he saw the problem right away. Parker was young and cocky, his style was just, go go go. He wanted to push as much dirt through the plant as quickly as possible. Chris, with his years of experience, knew that wasn't the right way to do things. Explained that Parker and the Hoffmans were very different. The Hoffmans only ran the plant a few hours a day, while Parker was very aggressive. This is where things got messy. Parker sped up the plant to try to move 180 yards of dirt an hour. Chris knew this was a mistake and tried to tell Parker that with the type of rock they had to go steady, but Parker wouldn't listen. He pushed Big Red to its limits, and the machine broke. Shut down completely. Parker was furious, and this was the turning point. Chris, the cool-headed veteran, stood up to Parker's young, angry boss. He made Parker an offer. He would take charge of the loader and the wash plant if Parker would step aside and trust him. Parker could keep doing things the way he always did and fail, or he could trust the expert he had just begged to come out of retirement because he wanted to push dirt as hard as he could. Parker agreed, and he gave the expert the keys to the business. A big trust moment. Chris slowed down the feed rate by 20% and ran the plant in his usual slow and steady way. The real test came at the next gold weigh. Parker took the gold to his landlord, the famous miner Tony Beats, to have it weighed. The result was amazing. They found 140.65 ounces of gold worth almost $200,000. It was a huge success. Tony Beats was impressed and asked Parker what he did differently. That's when Parker showed how much he had grown as a leader. He didn't take the credit, he gave it all to Chris. Told Tony that the most helpful thing was Chris Doumitt showing up and running the plant all the time. That one sentence won Chris Parker's trust, and Chris felt like Parker started giving him more freedom and respect than other people. Parker learned an important lesson from the $200,000 deal, and a legendary partnership was born. There are dark secrets from Gold Rush that still haunt the cast. Every great story has its secrets. In the world of Gold Rush, when the cameras are off, people talk. There are a lot of whispers going on about Rush. Both fans and critics are looking past the gold and asking tough questions about what is real, what is fake, and what truths are buried deeper than any pay dirt. What really makes people think is the nature of reality TV itself. While everyone loves the thrill of the gold weigh-ins, many fans love to guess how much of the drama is real. Some of the most popular theories are crazy, but the biggest one is often called the manufactured drama theory. Some fans think that the most dramatic parts of the show are either greatly exaggerated or even planned by the producers to make for better TV. Fans who believe this point to certain patterns. For example, why does a crucial piece of machinery like a water pump or a conveyor belt always break down at the worst possible time, right before a big cleanup or just as a storm is coming? Is it just bad luck, or is it a planned crisis meant to build suspense? Fans also bring up fights between crew members who get into fights out of the blue and then get along again just as quickly, making people think that these fights are either planned or urged to add a human touch to the mechanical process of mining. An even more extreme and controversial fan theory. One crazy idea that gets talked about in the deepest parts of fan forums is salting the pan. This theory says that when a crew is really suffering, producers might secretly add a little gold to a cleanup to make sure it ends in a dramatic and positive way. Now, it's important to note that most fans don't believe this theory. They know that if something like this were ever proven true, it would destroy all faith in the show. But the fact that it exists shows how much fans care about fairness and the reality of the small struggles and victories. A more believable and widely talked about idea is about the show's money. It's called the hidden investors theory, and it says that running a modern gold mine costs a huge amount of money. The Parker Schnabel. Many fans think that there are silent partners, because the show never makes it clear where all the money comes from. The theory goes that rich investors who are never shown on camera see these miners as a high-risk, high-reward business opportunity and give them the millions of dollars they need for land, equipment, and fuel in exchange for a cut of the profits. This would explain how they can afford to take such huge financial risks year after year. There is a complicated business world going on just out of sight, but it's not all theory. The show has had its share of scandals that have shaken its foundations. The Hoffman Cruise Guyana disaster was probably the most famous of these. The original star of the show, Todd Hoffman, had a big dream to leave the Klondike and find a legendary gold hole deep in the jungles of Guyana, South America. What happened next was one of the biggest disasters ever shown on reality TV. The crew was completely. They weren't ready for the harsh jungle environment, their gear sank in the mud, they had to deal with intense heat and bugs, and worst of all, they found almost no gold. After spending all of their money and time, the whole disastrous expedition yielded a laughable 2 ounces of gold. It was an embarrassing and financially ruinous scandal that sent the crew limping back to North America almost broke. Another big scandal that rocked the show in its early days came from a former cast member named Jimmy Dorsey. In a legal battle, he said that the show was heavily scripted and that the producers gave him a character to play. He also said that his portrayal on the show was misleading and that the drama wasn't as real as viewers were led to believe. This was one of the first times a cast member publicly pulled back the curtain, and it made many fans question the reality of what they were watching every week. Over the years, some of Gold Rush's biggest scandals weren't caused by broken machines or bad weather, they were caused by shocking exits by loved crew members. These moments often felt more real and emotional than any failed dig. One thing that people talked about a lot was, whilst Chris Doumitt Parker Schnabel's dependable gold room expert left and joined Rick Ness's rival crew, for longtime fans this felt like a non-public betrayal. Human beings online began debating what loyalty weigh and whether team individuals have been getting tired or pushed too hard. It additionally made many viewers marvel, what does a boss truly owe to their workers? Is it just money and activity, or is there something extra? The drama wasn't just on the goldfield, it became about actual people and their relationships. Any other unforgettable second became whilst Dave Turin, one of the maximum favored miners, left the Hoffman team. His exit wasn't peaceful, it got here after an extreme argument that grew to become bodily lovers have been greatly surprised. This confirmed all of us simply how a good deal pressure the miners have been underneath, and the way even near friendships should ruin below stress. What happens whilst people paintings for weeks in hard cold situations. With millions of dollars on the line every now and then matters explode, and this time it become on Digicam, and then there is the kind of scandal that breaks the regulation. You may not agree with this one. Tony beats the hard no-nonsense Viking of the show were given into real criminal trouble in a single episode. He desired to provide his antique dredge a Viking fashion send-off. A crew member poured gasoline into a dredge pond and set it on hearth. It regarded wild and exciting on TV, but the Canadian authorities failed to suppose it become funny. Environmental officials saw it and an professional research began. Tony and his mining enterprise had been taken to courtroom. Ultimately they had to pay over $30,000 in fines for breaking Yukon's environmental legal guidelines. This second reminded all of us, even though those miners are on television, they're still a part of the actual international. What occurs on display screen can cause huge effects in real life, and occasionally a stunt supposed to get scores ends up costing loads extra than cash. You may not trust how one retired fishermen have become Parker's secret weapon. Can antique knowledge truly outshine raw ambition like the story? Then hit like and subscribe for more.